Kid, and welcome to this presidential KidTime Storytime.
My fellow Americans.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, Great Bear.
Oh, hey, Tony Dinosaur. As you know, I have great presidential aspirations.
Oh, yes, we all know.
Just like Abraham Lincoln, I strive to be one of America's great presidents.
Oh, one day. And actually, Abraham Lincoln just happened to be one of my favorite presidents.
Why?
Because of the beautiful speeches that he gave and the great thoughts in his head and the way he led America, the country.
Yeah. And also, he stood for the rights of all people.
Yeah, yes. That's one of the things that I liked about him.
And I believe that Abraham Lincoln would fully support me in my bid to become the first green president of the United States of America.
You are probably right.
Well, as you guys know, one of the distinguishing features of Abraham Lincoln, besides his brilliant speeches and his amazing policies towards people of all colors, was also his beard.
Oh, yeah. He had a big beard.
But did you know he didn't always have it? No, he didn't. And as a matter of fact, this girl named Grace,
This one right here.
yes, she is the reason that he grew a beard.
Wow, that's a pretty influential girl.
Yeah, I wonder what she said to him.
Let's find out, shall we?
Oh, okay. Oh, let's read it. I love presidential story time.
Yeah, me too, because one day there's going to be one about me.
Lincoln and Grace, why Abraham Lincoln grew a beard. Actual, true story, not a fantasy, even though it seems like it would be one. All right, can you see the book nice and clearly? All right, here we go. Many people consider Abraham Lincoln to be the greatest president in the history of the United States. Today, when we see images of Lincoln, he usually has a beard. And that's one of the reasons that he is so easy to recognize. On pennies, on the $5 bill, at the Lincoln Memorial, which is so stunning. Mount Rushmore, which I want to see one day. Why did Abraham Lincoln decide to grow a beard? Well, it all began with a little girl. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more because I want you to be able to see this book as well as I can. All right, good. In the summer of 1860, 11-year-old Grace Fidel lived in Westfield. That's a small town in New York. There were 7 brothers and sisters in her family and a baby on the way. Ooh, that's a big family. Grace enjoyed shopping for clothes with her mother, decorating her dollhouse, and playing blind man's bluff with her friends. I'm gonna get you, Grace called out. Oh, there she's playing. Everybody's like, oh, you can't get me, oh. Family dinners were fun for Grace, except when the discussion turned to the upcoming presidential election. Now, that's when she first heard about a tall, relatively unknown candidate, a fella named Abraham Lincoln, a name to go down in history. Well, I think Lincoln would make a fine president, Grace's father said. I agree with his position on banning slavery in any new states that join the Union. I disagree, said George, one of Grace's brothers. I'm going to vote for Stephen Douglas. Me too, said Levant, another brother. Lincoln's a clumsy backwoodsman who doesn't know anything. Or does he? Vigorous political discussion at the family table. I wish I could vote for Lincoln too, Grace's mother said, but unfortunately I can't. It's not fair that Mama can't vote, Grace said. She's as smart as any man. Grace, who do you think should be our next president? George asked. Well, Grace replied, if Mama and Papa like Lincoln, I like him too. Why don't you think for yourself? Levant said. You have a brain. That is what I think, Grace said and stomped off. We're learning a lot of information here, aren't we? Slavery is still legal in America. Women are not allowed to vote. What? Well, we're going to come a long way from there. Grace loved reading all kinds of books. Uncle Tom's Cabin, one of the most popular novels of that time, deeply affected her. Maybe you've read it in school or maybe you will read it in school. Slavery is wrong, Papa, Grace exclaimed, showing him her book. We don't have any slaves in Westfield, do we? No, New York is a free state. Then, I am proud to live here. If Abraham Lincoln is elected president this fall, I think he'll end slavery throughout the whole country. Oh, I really hope he wins. So you see what happens over here? Proclamation of freedom to millions, the Emancipation Proclamation. Well, as you know, Abraham Lincoln wins the election. And it says right here under this little print, I'm going to read it for you because it's kind of tiny. Lincoln and slavery. When Abraham Lincoln became president, America was divided into free states and slave states and territories. Since Lincoln's primary interest was in preserving the Union, that means keeping the United States together and united, he initially favored allowing the southern slave states to remain that way. However, he was strongly against slavery extending into more territories. This was land in the western part of the United States that were not states yet. We're talking like California, way out in the west, all those areas that are still just territories and not official states. Well, at this time, Lincoln was not an abolitionist. That's the fancy big word for somebody who thought slavery should be completely stopped everywhere. During the Civil War, Lincoln's position, however, it changed. It developed because people's opinions can change and develop over time as they get more information and more knowledge. On January 1st, 1863, he issued an executive order. It was called the Emancipation Proclamation, and you'll hear about this in school a lot if you haven't already. It proclaimed that slaves who lived in the 10 states that were still fighting against the North in the Civil War were now freed. In December 1865, the 13th Amendment was passed, and that amendment made slavery illegal in all of the U.S. So no more slave states and free states and then territories that were in between. No more slavery anywhere. Because Abraham Lincoln did so much to end slavery, many people refer to him as the great emancipator. Emancipator is like a big word for liberator, somebody who brings freedom. When September arrived, now we fast forward, it's the fall, it was time for school. Goodbye, Mother. Bye-bye, Una, Grace said as she walked out the door. Born in August, that's the baby sister, Eunice. She was already 1 month old, so a little bit of time has passed. Now, from his desk in the front of the classroom, Grace's teacher was talking about Lincoln and Douglas, the two main presidential candidates. So the election is still happening. The electoral process, the campaigning process. During afternoon recess, the boys chased one another in a game of tag, and since it wasn't acceptable at the time for girls to take part in active games during school, Grace and her friends played cat's cradle instead, which is like that thing with strings, I guess. Ugh, boring. But while waiting for her turn, she overheard one of her classmates. "Lincoln's so ugly," a boy said to his friend. "I can't believe he's running for president." Well, Grace called out, "He's not ugly, and he's going to be the best president ever." I see where this is going. In October, Grace's father attended a hometown fair in support of Lincoln. That's like a big political rally, and people give speeches and get inspired. That evening when he got home, he had a surprise for Grace. "It's a picture of Mr. Lincoln," Grace said, holding up a campaign poster. "Thank you, Papa." Look at that. How cool to have your very own campaign poster and you're just a kid. And no, she doesn't know it yet, but that's going to be incredibly valuable. As Grace walked up the stairs to her bedroom, Levant, that's one of her brothers, called out, "He'll never become president with a face like that." "Yes, he will." She slammed the door behind her. Ker slam. Moving to a chair by the window. It's a good place to do some deep thinking. Grace took a close look at Lincoln's face. She admired his high forehead and his serious expression. "But I don't like the way his mouth and chin look," she thought. Just then, a shadow fell across Lincoln's face through the window, and Grace had an idea. "He would look much better with whiskers," she exclaimed. Well, she couldn't keep such a brilliant idea to herself. So on October 15th, Grace sat at her desk. Look at this old-fashioned lamp right here. That's a flame, hurricane lamp, and there's a flame, and there's oil in there to keep it burning because that's how it was pre-electricity, y'all. So she sits down at her desk to write a letter to Abraham Lincoln, future president of America, by candlelight. And she introduced herself, asked him if he had any daughters. More importantly, she suggested, "Let your whiskers grow, for your face is so thin." Grace added that women like whiskers and they would tease their husbands to vote for you and then you would be president. So Grace dipped her pen into a bottle of ink and printed Honorable Abraham Lincoln, Springfield, Illinois on the envelope. She placed her letter inside, sealed it, added a penny stamp, and with a bounce in her step, she brought it to the post office. If Mr. Lincoln answers my letter, Grace thought, I'll certainly have something to show Levant. She sure will. And look at that. Do you see that? Let me put it up so you can see it better. That is an inkwell. So there were no pens like there are now where there's already ink inside, like say, oh, I don't know. Let me see. Let me find a pen here. A million pens. Here, see? Like a pen, the ink is already inside. It's ready to go. But not back then. It was kind of like a fancy stick with a pointy end, and you dipped it in the ink and then you wrote until the ink ran out. Dip again. Da, da, da. Everything took just a little more effort back then. All right, I'm going to scooch down again so we can see more of the words. Okay. Votes for women! Women and voting! Oh, let's see. What is this? This is in the future now. This is, let's see here. What does it say? Throughout most of Grace Fidel's life, that's Grace, our girl, women were not permitted to vote. The fight for women's suffrage, that's the right to vote, suffrage, began in the 1820s. Now that's before Lincoln is even president. Many women of this time were discontent, that's unhappy, with the limits put on them for earning money outside the home. Limits? Ugh, we don't want limits. They wanted the same rights and privileges as men. It's hard to believe, but yeah, they had to fight for even that basic stuff. Women fought hard for equal rights during the 1800s and early 1900s. After World War I, now this is way after Lincoln, women's contributions on behalf of the war effort finally helped change public opinion, and women were finally granted the right to vote August 26, 1920. And that took the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. 19th Amendment let women vote. On election day 1920, when Grace, the little star of our story, Grace Fidel was almost 72 years old, women voted in national and local elections for the very first time. Can you imagine? And here they show us a picture. Looks like it's a big parade. Looks like a big city. And it could have been a city anywhere. It could have been Chicago, New York, anywhere really. A big suffragette parade supporting women's vote. And here, this is a flag of the suffragette movement. Okay, so back to the current story and Abraham Lincoln. So it's later that same week. Abraham Lincoln is sorting through his mail and he notices an envelope that features the unmistakable handwriting of a child, because you know that your writing is different from grown-up writing. So Lincoln smiles and he opens the letter and he reads it. So, an 11-year-old girl thinks I will increase my chances of getting elected if I let my whiskers grow, he thought. Well, perhaps she's right. That is an open-thinking fella, willing to take suggestions from a kid. A few days later, Grace returned to the post office. Is there something for me? Grace asked David Mann, the postmaster. Everybody in Westfield knew Mr. Mann. Sorry, not today, the postmaster replied after a few minutes. She returned the next day, the day after that, still nothing. Finally, on October 22nd, wait. I want to know when she wrote it. Okay, remember October 15th, she wrote the letter. October 22nd is only 1 week later. Mr. Mann excitedly handed Grace a letter. It's from Abraham Lincoln, he announced. Mr. Lincoln answered my letter. I can't believe it. Even though it was only October, a light snow was falling already, and Grace almost slipped as she ran home because she's so excited. I can't wait to read what he said. Look what I've got, Mama, Grace shouted as she burst through the door. It's from Mr. Lincoln. He answered my letter. Goodness gracious, her mother replied. I didn't even know you wrote to him. Oh, it was a secret. Nobody knew but me. But now everybody's gonna know. Well, Grace went to the parlor and found Levant. Look, it's from Mr. Lincoln. Ugh, why on earth would Abraham Lincoln write to you? Levant asked. Because I wrote to him first, and now he answered me. My, Lincoln actually wrote a letter to my little sister. Aren't you proud? Asked Grace's mom. Yeah, I guess I am. Well, you're gonna guess for sure in a minute. Grace ran upstairs and into her room. Oh, she's gonna read it alone. Okay. She was pleased with every word of Lincoln's letter until she came to the last sentence. Why? As to the whiskers, he wrote, do you not think people would call it a silly affection if I were to begin it now? It sounds like Mr. Lincoln won't be growing whiskers, Grace thought sadly. That's too bad. I thought I was right about that. So maybe he's thinking it'll look silly on him. But I don't know. I mean, he must be thinking about it. Look, her room. It's light snow outside because it's upstate New York, so it's cool already in the late fall. And there is his poster, and there's her doll and her books and her coat and her desk where she wrote the letter with the ink, and her little lamp lit by oil. Well, the election took place on Tuesday, November 6, 1860. That's an important date that will come up in your schooling. The election took place Tuesday, November 6, 1860. Grace was hoping with all her heart that Lincoln would be the next president. When Grace finally heard the news that Lincoln had won, she jumped up and down with delight. And a few months later, on the morning of February 16, 1861, Grace woke up with the sun. Get out of bed, sleepyheads, she said, shaking her two older sisters. President Lincoln is here on his way to Washington, D.C., remember? Yes, of course, Helen said, rubbing her eyes. But his train won't be arriving until later in the day. I know, but let's get ready now, said Grace. Oh, she was so excited. Along with Grace and her sisters, thousands of people converged at Westfield train station, hoping to get a glimpse of the new president. Ooh, I hope he has whiskers, Grace said. When his train arrived, Lincoln stepped out of the last car to address the crowd. As he spoke, Grace stood on her tippy toes, right there, right at her tippy toes. There are too many people, Grace said. I can't see him. There he is, Alex exclaimed. And he does have whiskers. He does. Really? Grace said, let me see, because there he is, so tiny in the distance. Let's see here. Oh, wait, you probably want to see what this says before I turn the page. Okay, because here, that's his inauguration in March of 1861, but it says here that before being inaugurated, he had a few weeks to put his business in order before going to Washington, D.C. So he got on a train in Springfield, Illinois, that's where he lived, and he made several stops at cities along the way on his way to New York. And one of the places he stopped was Westfield, New York, to meet Grace Fidel. Ah! He specifically went to meet her? Oh, I guess that's in the rest of the book. Let's see. He arrived in D.C. February 25th. Now, in modern times, it says the president's inauguration is always noon, January 20th. But when Lincoln was inaugurated way back then, the date was March 4th to coincide with the date on which the Constitution of the United States took effect in 1789. By the time Lincoln gave his address, by the way, these were difficult times in America. 7 states had already seceded from the Union. That means they had broken away from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America. Despite this turn of events, Lincoln desperately wanted to keep the Union together to avoid a war between the southern and northern states. That would be the great challenge of his presidency and would define everything. Now, after a short speech, now remember we're in Westfield and he's doing his train stops along the way to D.C. After a short speech, Lincoln peered into the mass of people. I have a little correspondent in this place, he announced, and if she is present, will she please come forward? Who is it? Shouted one of the spectators. Grace Fidel, answered Lincoln. The crowd parted, and a man led Grace to Lincoln's train car, and he stepped down and shook Grace's hand. You see, Lincoln said, pointing to his whiskers, I let these grow for you, Grace. Oh, cheese and crackers. That is a huge, huge moment.
I don't know what I would have done with myself. Oh!
I know. Face to face with the brand new president of the United States of America telling you that he followed your consulting advice. A thunderous cheer filled the air as Lincoln kissed Grace's cheek and returned to his train car, and he waved a U.S. flag as the train pulled away. Goodbye, Mr. President. Blushing with embarrassment, but excitement too. Grace rushed to get away from the train station, racing between horses and buggies and even crawling under a lumber wagon. She left her sisters and ran all the way home. I can't believe it, she told her mother. Abraham Lincoln wanted to meet me, and he did grow whiskers just like I asked him to. What a story, Grace's mother said. This is the most exciting day of my life, Grace said. I can't wait to tell Papa. Oh, do you know what we have here? We have the actual letters. Okay, you ready? Okay, this is Grace Fidel's letter to Lincoln, October 15th, 1860. Honorable A.B. Lincoln. Dear Sir, my father has just come home from the fair and brought home your picture and Mr. Hamlin's. Oh, I don't know who Mr. Hamlin is. Maybe he was another local fellow politician. I am a little girl, only 11 years old, but want you should be President of the United States very much. So I hope you won't think me very bold to write to such a great man as you are. Have you any little girls about as large as I am? If so, give them my love and tell her to write to me if you cannot answer this letter. I have got 4 brothers and part of them will vote for you anyway. And if you let your whiskers grow, I will try and get the rest of them to vote for you. You would look a great deal better, for your face is so thin. All the ladies like whiskers. See, she's giving him female advice. And they would tease their husbands to vote for you, and then you would be president. My father's going to vote for you, and if I was a man, I would vote for you too. But I will try to get everyone to vote for you that I can think. That rail fence around your picture makes it look very pretty. I've got a little baby sister. She's 9 weeks old and is just as cunning as can be. When you direct your letter, direct to Grace Fidel, Westfield, Chautauqua County, New York. I'm not from Chautauqua, so I'm not sure if that's exactly how to say it. I must not write any more. Answer this letter right off. Goodbye, Grace Fidel. Okay, so what did he say? Miss Grace Fidel, my dear little miss, your very agreeable letter of the 15th is received. I regret the necessity of saying I have no daughters. I have 3 sons, one 17, one 9, and one 7 years of age. They, with their mother, constitute my whole family. As to the whiskers, having never worn any, do you not think people would call it a piece of silly affection if I were to begin it now? Your very sincere well wishes, A. Lincoln. And that's how he would sign, A. Lincoln. And that's how she changed the face of history. It says here, in 18th later life, I'm curious to read about her later life. If you want to stay here with me, I want to see what happened to Grace. In 1867, at the age of 19, Grace Fidel married George Billings, a Civil War soldier who fought for the North. They courageously picked up their roots in Westfield, New York, and not sure what would happen to them, moved out west. Remember, that's where all the new territories and future states were. They settled in Delphos, Kansas, and lived difficult pioneer lives. That's when they went and covered wagons and had to till the land and build their homes by hand. When they started, their only possessions were a small home and a team of oxen. As a pioneer woman now, Grace made feed sack curtains for the windows and mended clothes. When it rained, she struggled to keep the rainwater from coming in the door. Beef jerky and cornbread were examples of food they ate. She died November 2nd, 1936 in Delphos at the age of 87. Wow, she lived a good long life and got to live to see women vote. In the 1990s, way in the future now, the letter that Grace wrote to Lincoln when she was 11 years old was put on sale for $1 million. Isn't that incredible? And if you're ever in Westfield, New York, there is a statue of Abraham Lincoln and Grace in the town to honor the incredible thing that happened because of a little girl
who was willing to write a letter and get involved because she thought that she had a voice.
That's right, because we all have a voice, and you should definitely use yours to do good things like vote for Green Bear.
Absolutely. Do good things and write beautiful letters like Abraham Lincoln and stand for truth,
justice,
and the American way. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us here on this Vote for Green Bear edition.
Oh, it's not a Vote for Green Bear edition. It's a presidential edition.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Anyway, thanks for coming to KidTime StoryTime.
That's right. And subscribe so that we can always be hanging out and reading and stuff, okay?
Yeah, because we like when you come and you hang out with us.
Yeah. It's so fun. Okay, kid. See you next time.
See you next time.
See you next time on
Kid Time!
Story time.